All right, let's just be warned here that this is when division can get really frustrating for some people, so don't get discouraged. First things first, I want to remind you about dad, mom, sister, brother, rover. The process is the same. It just takes a little bit longer for us to get there. The first thing we do is we say 39 goes into 2. It doesn't. So we're going to put a little X there. Now you notice I've drawn lines showing kind of a grid so that all of my work stays really nice and neat. 39 doesn't go into 28 either, so we're going to put an X there. Now I know that 39 is going to go into 288. To figure out how many times, the easiest way to do that is to round 40. Now I put in parentheses because remember, you're not going to multiply that by that 40. That's just helping you to figure out how many times 39 will go in there. So I think, okay, 4 goes into 28 about 7 times. So 39 probably goes into 288 about 7 times. See how we just took the first parts of both of these? So we're going to put a 7 here. Now, do not multiply by the 40. You were just using that to help you. We've done the divide, now we're going to multiply. Now, I can multiply where I take this 7 and go to the 9 and then to the 3. Some people, to make sure that it's right, they rewrite it over on the side like this, because then they're sure that they get the right answer. Like I said, I say 7 times 9 is 63, and 7 times 3 is 21, plus 6 is 27. Then you just have to remember to erase that 6 so it doesn't get in your way later. So then I have now multiplied. So my next step is to subtract. And I subtract, see how my columns, I keep my columns nice and neat. And now I'm going to bring down. So I'm going to bring down the 6. And now I'm going to repeat. So now I go to this rounded number again. And I'm going to switch colors to brown, I guess that is. And I'm going to say again, 4 goes into 15 about 3 times. I can once again write my answer or my problem over here and say that I have 117. Let's look at what happens with that. When I do that problem and I subtract, I am going to get exactly 39. This number, when I subtract, I did the division, I did the multiplication, when I get to that subtraction, before I bring down, this number has to be less than my divisor. It's not less than my divisor. It's exactly what my divisor is, which means I need to move that number up. So I have to, and this is the real big pain of division, I've got to go back and I've got to erase all of this. And if 3 was too low, that means I need to go up to 4. 4 times 9 is 36. 4 times 3 is 12, 13, 14, 15. And of course it's going to be exactly 0 because it was exactly 39 before. If my remainder is 0, I can just write my answer like this. I don't need to write remainder 0. Remember, a couple of things that we want to check. We want to make sure that our remainder is less than our divisor, that our bridge is full, and there's no more things to bring down. All right, here we go again. We have 81 doesn't go into 7, so we're going to put a little X, and it doesn't go into 75. We know 81 goes into 753. To figure out how many times, we're going to round 81 to 80, and we're going to say, okay, 8 goes into 75 about 9 times. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 8 is 72. So I did my dividing, I multiplied, and now I'm going to subtract. When I subtract, I get 24. Now, before I bring down, I want to check to make sure this number is less than the divisor, and it is. So now I can bring down my 3. See how careful I am to keep it in the nice columns. And now I'm going to repeat. I'm going to divide, and I'm going to say, how many times does 8 go into 24? Well, 8 goes into 24 about 3 times. Well, it goes in exactly 3 times. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 8 is 24. That was my multiplying. I'm going to subtract. I get 0. There's nothing more to bring down. My remainder is less than my divisor, so I'm done. All right, the next one, same thing. 68 doesn't go into 4. It doesn't go into 49. Let's write dad, mom, sister, brother, Rover. I'm going to round 68 to 70. And then I'm going to say 70 or 7 goes into 49 about 7 times. And remember, if you can't figure out how to multiply going across like that, you can go over on the side of your whiteboard or paper. And I'll tell you one nice thing about doing this, you have to write the number twice. But if your number gets to be too high, you know right away before you subtract. This seems to be okay, so I'm going to write 476, nice and neat in my columns. I'm going to subtract. 20 is less than 68, so I'm going to bring down my 7, and now I'm going to repeat. I'm going to go to my divide, and I'm going to say 7 goes into 20. Now, this is where compatible numbers help us. 20 is pretty close to 21, so I'm going to take a chance, and I'm going to say 3. And now I have 68 times 3, because I'm multiplying, is 204. Now I'm going to subtract, and I get 3. There's nothing more to bring down. My remainder is less than my divisor. Remember, your remainder always hangs off the end, and then I'm done. All right. Dad, mom, sister, brother, Rover. 72 doesn't go into 4. 72 doesn't go into 49. I'm going to round 72 to 70. And then I'm going to think, okay, how many times does 7 go into 49? And it goes into it 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 7 is 49 plus the 1 is 50. Ah, shoot. So now that number is too high, which means my new dividend was too high. So, my new quotient was too high, so I need to go back and I need to say, okay, well, let's try 6 instead. And I want to erase this so I don't mess up later. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 7 is 42 plus 1 is 43. Now I'm going to subtract, and I get 64. And then I'm going to bring down, because that 64 is less than 72, and now I'm going to repeat. So if I go and say 7 goes into 64 about 9 times, and you might want to say, maybe, like I said, that's hard, so you write over here, 18, 63, 64. Look at that. Hoorah. So now oops, I wasn't keeping track. I multiplied. I subtract, I get 0. There's nothing more to bring down. My remainder is 0, so I am done. All right, again, dad, mom, sister, brother, repeat. 28 doesn't go into 2. It doesn't go into 25. I'm going to keep saying this. Make sure your work stays neat. If that means you turn a sheet of notebook paper on its side, that's a great idea. Now I'm going to round the 28. Remember, you're not multiplying by that 30. This is just helping us to understand how many times 28 goes into 252. 3 goes into 25 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 2 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I'm going to subtract, and I get 28. 28 is exactly what my divisor is, so I know that my divisor is too high, which, like I said before, this is the real bummer of division. The nice thing is, I know that that wasn't big enough, so and it was exactly 28. So I know that if I multiply this by 9, it's going to be exactly 252. So now I subtract and I get 0. I bring down my 0. I repeat. Now, don't forget this step. We still have an empty spot on our bridge here. Don't stop there. We have to go back to say, how many times does 28 go into 0? Well, it goes into it 0 times. 0 times 28 is 0. We subtract. There's nothing more to bring down, so 90 is our answer. 33 doesn't go into 1. It doesn't go into 12. I'm going to round. It does go into 128, so I'm going to round 33 to 30 and think 3 goes into 12 about 4 times. But this time I'm going to think ahead, and I'm going to say, you know what? It just goes into 12. and 33 is more than 30. So I think that 4 is going to be too high, so I'm going to try 3. I multiply 3 times 3 and I get 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. And when I subtract, I get 29. 29 is a huge remainder, but it is less than 33, so it's good. So now I'm going to bring down my 7, and now I'm back to dividing. 3 goes into 29 9 times. I'm going to multiply 33 times 9, and I get 297. I'm going to subtract, and I get 0. There's nothing more for me to bring down, so 39 is my answer. The lunchroom has enough seats for 168 students. Each class has 24 students. How many classes can eat in the lunchroom at the same time? We have a couple of hints that we're going to divide here. We say each, we see same, which means equal. And also, you think about dealing out cards or dividing the students onto different seats in the lunchroom. So if we're going to divide 168, we're going to divide that by 24. And 24 doesn't go into 1, and it doesn't go into 16. 16, but it does go into 168. If I round 24 to 20, 2 goes into 16 8 times, but just like the last one, because this is 24, I think that 8 is going to be too high, so I'm going to multiply it by 7 instead. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 more is 16. And so I have 7 classes can eat lunch at the same time. Mrs. Randall bought tickets to the art museum for all the 5th grade students. Each ticket cost $12, and the total cost was $1,152. So if I know the total and we're talking about each, that's what's letting me know to divide. So I'm going to divide 1152 by 12. I'm going to leave the dollar signs out just because it's neater. And if I count up by 12s instead of estimating this time, I have 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, 96, 108. That's probably what it's going to be, so I'm going to hit 9 here. And I know it's 108. And when I subtract, I get 72. And if I couldn't remember what my 12s were, I could count them again. I could say 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. Oh, there's 72. So I know this is going to be a 6. I know this is 72. So there are 96 students.